All right, y'all. We are back with another episode of Guided Truth. Man, I'm so excited always to do this show. I know I'm going to learn something and get a new perspective. And for me to learn something, that means that I have to have someone to learn from, which means Guyland is in the house. What's going on, Guyland?
What's going on?
How you doing?
Hey, it's another day. We about to get it going now.
We about to get it going? Well, how you feeling?
I'm good.
Yeah? You just good?
Yeah, I'm good.
You just good?
I'm just good.
Come on, man. You got to be a little bit better than good. Come on, you know you want to say it. You just refuse.
I'm always blessed and highly favored.
And I am favored and highly blessed. Now we can get the show going. He just not going to say it. And he knows it's coming, too. All right, so we got a special episode. We know that it is Halloween is right around the corner, just a few days away. And being Christian men as we are, we wanted to get into some of the origins of this pagan holiday. It is something that I've celebrated growing up. I will admit, my dad didn't really celebrate it. He was a Baptist minister.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we didn't have Halloween. We did a little bit. But the
more just the candy at home,
just kind of the candy. And the biggest thing that I remember was taking a pumpkin on the third floor and he let me throw it out the window when I was a kid. I was like 9 years old. And so that was a lot of fun. We got a big ha-ha off of that. But other than that, just wasn't really a big deal in our house. So, you know, he never really taught us the origins and whatnot. So, you know, I kind of follow suit with my daughter. We carve pumpkins and whatnot. But we won't do it this year. She's a teenager, so now she's grown, right? She's gonna hit 13, so she's good. But other than that, you know, it is kind of what it is. But we're gonna get into it because you got to educate us on our behaviors and our thoughts and things that we participate in, and we really don't know what we're doing.
Well, at least a little bit. You at least know what you're doing, so you can have an understanding of the consequences or the seeds you have sown. So you, when you know stuff is happening to you, you're like, well, I'm reaping what I've sown. So,
man, well, that's deep because a lot of folks would say, especially like mothers, like, what's wrong with, you know, putting out candy for the kids to come and, you know, give out candy to the other kids and whatnot? Like, what's the problem with that? It's so innocent.
If you're doing it like that and you're having like, because there was a woman at Bible study, she literally said she puts Bible verses or with the candy. So they get the candy, but they're also getting a Bible verse with it when they open up the candy. So I don't see anything wrong with that.
Okay.
But you got to have something to combat the historical.
Got you. So in her case, she's using the Roman roads.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. All right. Well, let's get into it. Break down the origin of Halloween for us, you know, how it came to be and, you know, why this is important to you. But before you do, what was it like in your household growing up? Did you guys celebrate Halloween?
Not really. I went trick-or-treating a couple of times around 5th and 6th grade. But before that, we stayed in the apartment complexes, so we would have like candy at home, and we would have popcorn and watch movies. But we would do like the Charlie Brown, Pumpkin Patch, and some of those other cartoons like that. But so it was only maybe a couple of years, but mostly we just kind of stayed home.
Gotcha. Okay. Remind me, hopefully, to ask you before the episode is over, is why our folks seem to be so enamored with horror movies and demons, and it's just really weird. But a lot of folks that I talk to, and they love the demonic, you know.
Well, that's part of
possession movies.
That's part of this also. So, we'll start.
Yeah, jump on in.
We'll start at the beginning. So, it's a Celtic holiday. Originally, and it's called Samhain, and it's spelled Samhain.
Samhain, okay.
Yeah, and it's a pagan festival originated in ancient Celtic spiritual traditions, and it was celebrated from sunset October 31st to sunset November 1st. So originally it was supposed to be a spiritual holiday. But they would be dressed up in costumes, but it was more or less to scare like the evil spirits away.
Okay.
Um,
That kind of seems like a good thing. You want the bad things to go away.
Yeah, but that's not how you that's not how you do it. Dressing up as evil spirits
to scare an evil spirit away.
Yeah, that's
I'm
not.
gonna be evil with evil.
Yeah, and they didn't believe that that's what they were doing, but they just believed that, oh, okay, this is for our protection to do this. So, and it's changed over. There's different phases that it's changed, but it's always kept that. It's changed so originally it was like spiritual, and then when they came to the U.S., the immigrants migrated to the U.S. They brought a lot of that with them, and then also the Romans had intermingled with their beliefs into the pagan beliefs into it. So that's when it first started to be like more. Not necessarily evil, but it was more of like not necessarily let's have fun, but it's more mischievous.
Got you.
So it went from being, oh, well, let's protect us from these evil spirits to being more mischievous. So at one point, when they first came over here, they were actually breaking people's windows. So that's how when trick or treat came about. It was more tricks.
Gotcha.
It was more tricks but they were violent. So it was like one day out of the year where they could just do whatever they want. They was
like the Purge.
They was.
I mean, not where they killing folks, but in the video you said.
So a few people would get hurt, but it was more of because they would still dress up in costumes, but and they would dance around in the streets. But that was their one night where they would just mess up everybody's property.
Gotcha. And you know what? That still happens today. Now, there's a video in the description. In the video you showed, they were knocking over outhouses.
Yeah.
They were talking about, the era of the Depression. So they were going around and just, tearing stuff up.
Yeah.
But that stuff still happens. TPing houses,
Yeah.
Putting dog poop in a bag and putting it on someone's porch.
Yeah.
Ninja knocking is another one that folks would do. So just, like you said, mischievous with different levels, right? I don't want to wake up and have a bag of poop on my doorstep, and sometimes they'll smash it and it's just it's nasty. So I get what you're saying.
But in the video, they would also, like a lot of women would, so certain things they would do, like, you know how, I don't know if you had this, but when you're kids and they would say like, some people would say stuff like the Bloody Mary. Well, they would look in the mirror and they would have, they would eat sort of bobbing for apples. If they could grab the apple, they would go in front of a mirror looking for their either their next romantic relationship or they were just looking for something more from the spirit world. So they say Halloween is supposed to be the one of the darkest days, but if you ask some witches, they say that that's the strongest day of the year for people that do witchcraft. So it's like the veil between our realm and the spiritual realm is said to be real thin at that point in the year. So
you got the Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. I remember that in the 80s, and then the 90s and the 2000s, it was Candyman.
Yeah.
So a lot of us watched Candyman.
But you got to be careful because a lot of that stuff is based on real witchcraft. So you have to be careful of what you say because you may not think something's coming, or you may not think it's real, or you may not have to see a spirit, but something
I will tell
came
you
through.
a quick story. I don't know if we were doing Candyman or Bloody Mary. I think it was Bloody Mary. And I was a preteen. And we were on the second floor. The same, that house had a basement in it, but I was on the second floor.
Yeah.
And I had done that in the mirror.
Mm.
And in my bedroom window, there was a white head. It looked like a balloon with a face on it.
Yeah.
And it was in my window. But we're on the second floor. Right? And I was terrified.
And see, now you got the spirit of fear now.
You know?
Just because of that, because you're so terrified and don't understand what you just called to you.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
I still haven't forgotten, right? That was 50 years ago, 40 years ago. So,
yeah.
You know, woo, boy.
Yeah, you got to be careful. Some stuff you don't mess with.
It seemed real. And it was dark. So it wasn't no one playing around with a white balloon and putting it in my, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It was like in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at least in the house, the lights were on, right?
Man.
So, I think you said like after the Great Depression, it was like around, I want to say 1940s, they came together and wanted to stop all the mischievous behavior.
Yeah, the kids were getting
so they brought in
out of hand.
the more treats, like the candy. So it used to be more gates.
Mm-hmm.
It was a gate between not necessarily the demonic, but they were basically trying to figure out, okay, what's a good way to how we can get rid of the bad behavior. So They said, all right, we'll do trick or treat. So they brought in all this candy, but the candy had a meaning back then as well. So,
really?
So before they would make these little cakes, but what they were called soul cakes.
Oh yeah, I remember that in the video.
So soul cakes, they would make these cakes and set them outside. So it was almost like for protection.
Mm-hmm.
So
it wasn't like to free the soul or something of someone who had passed away.
That's what they were supposed to be. They thought they were trying to see when they would actually look in the mirror. They either was trying to look for a loved one or who their significant other was going to be. And so they had a lot of different stuff. They would burn, it was some kind of nut. They burn in the fire, and if it cracked, the relationship wouldn't last. But if it just burned without cracking, then that your relationship was gonna be a lasting relationship. So
we have lots of different superstitions for sure.
Yeah, but that's superstition in itself is bad. Mm-hmm. So they just basically decided to end up making money off of it. So society now it's a $1 billion industry, but they're bringing in all this evil worship. So it's still a type of idolatry.
Right.
But
even the carving of the pumpkins, right? I mean, you're literally carving. Some of the jack-o'-lanterns look happy, but many of them look really evil and whatnot. And you got kids and adults carving. I mean, I've done it myself. So
yeah. I have too.
Mm-hmm. I'm talking about as an adult, like within the last few years. I got some pretty cool pumpkins that I've carved.
Oh no, I haven't. In the last few years, I haven't done no pumpkin carving. But people need to understand what they're doing when they're celebrating this. Is society has taken out the spiritual, but it's still there.
Gotcha.
So just because you think you're not doing anything spiritual, the spiritual world is more. They say the spiritual world is more realer than this world.
So it's kind of like a thing of, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, they say Halloween's a night when the boundary between the living and the dead, it like merges together. So basically, things can come through. So that veil that's supposed to be separation can be spirits can come through if you call them. and a lot of Halloween is dealing with calling
Trying
those,
to call those
trying to call spirits. I think they call it divination. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Let's play the video.
And the boundary between the living and the dead grows thin, and the ordinary world transforms into a realm of shadows. Costumed figures roam the streets, but behind these playful disguises lies a deeper, darker
Can you hear
tale,
it?
a story rooted in ancient rites and restless spirits. Long before it became a night of candy and mischief, Halloween was born from the fires of Samhain, the Celtic festival where the veil to the other world was at its most fragile.
You got to pause.
A time when spirits walked among.
Right.
Okay, so at this point, it's still back. It hasn't came to the U.S. as you can see. It's still, that's more of ancient times before.
Okay, just kind
when
of talk about the
everything,
origin story.
when everything was actually still spiritual.
Gotcha.
At this point, but it was a lot of spirit worship or trying to protect yourself from evil spirits. But people feared the night more then. And so they was always trying to protect themselves from what they feared.
Why don't we fast forward to where we kind of left off, which was in the 1940s? Because you kind of gave us a pretty good recap of how it started and where we're at.
Yeah, about
fast forward a little bit there.
Yeah, probably about halfway mark maybe.
And so while we're getting it fast forwarded, what are your thoughts on, and I kind of asked this before, but a lot of folks, when I have conversations with them, if they feel like they don't mean any harm by what it is that they're doing, they don't see the problem with it, right? It's like, hey, my parents did it, my parents' parents did it, all my parents' friends did it. Ain't nothing wrong with us. So, you know, we're not trying to bring up spirits. We're just trying to have a good time and have fun. We like being scared, and you know, there's nothing evil or nefarious behind it. So
right there is
what's the big deal?
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you think you're doing anything or not. So they say the devil is the best legalman, because it's all about legal right. Once you touch something that's his, he can come mess with you.
Wow.
So whether you think, oh, well, I didn't mean to do that, or I was just, wanting to have fun. Okay, but see, everything that you think is fun ain't meant for you to touch.
Wow. Okay.
So we have to learn what all his things are, so we know not to touch them.
You know, and that's a bigger conversation, but that almost seems like the situation that's going on with Diddy now. You know, you have folks that want to be in the limelight and be with the famous folks, and good stuff ain't happening there, but you want to be there either because you want to be an artist or you want to be around these folks and you want to be part of the party. And then when bad stuff happens, it's like, well, I just was trying to have fun. And it's like, but you knew
the circumstances. You put yourself in bad situations. So
right. And then you expect nothing bad to happen to you when you put yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at that.
Yeah, consequences is there's always consequences. Go ahead and play it.
Room lit only by candlelight, hoping to see the face of their true love.
Looks like the part
or
where
perhaps a
they're doing
spectre
Mary,
of
Mary.
death.
Yeah, but it's not just
hazelnuts were thrown into fires, each representing a possible suitor.
Everything was about
if a nut burned brightly, love would flourish. But if it popped or cracked, the romance was doomed.
I'm sure they didn't.
And so,
they were worshiping.
Halloween became a liminal space, neither fully Christian nor entirely pagan.
Now they're talking about
it was a night where the sacred and the profane danced side by side, where holy hymns were sung, and ghost stories were told by the hearth, where the dead were honored with prayers and feared with superstitions. A night to remember the faithful departed and to keep the shadows at bay.
Catholicism similar,
and as the winds of time continue.
Mary, right? And Jesus.
So Christianity believes in Jesus, believes in God. We know of Mary, but we don't worship Mary.
Right.
And Catholicism, they know of God, they know of Jesus, but they worship Mary just as much as they worship Jesus.
But wouldn't that be still under kind of the Christian banner, or is it really a separate thing?
It's two separate things.
Okay. So it'd be like
and if you look up
Catholicism, Muslim, Christian, is that separate?
That's how.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's what it needs to be recognized as.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you look at the word Catholic or Catholicism, it means universal. So this is for another topic, but Catholicism can incorporate any religion.
Really?
Because it means universal.
Oh man.
So
all right.
That's why they do so well around the world, because they let you keep your religion, but they change the names of what you worship. So, and people are like, oh, okay, I can keep it. It's just now, it's this. Like on this video, they talk about Christianity has saints. Christianity don't have saints. Catholics have saints.
Gotcha. Okay.
But the one thing about the Catholic Church, they believe that the Pope can or a pastor can forgive them of their sins, and that's not a thing.
Right.
So that's where the huge difference is. If you don't get nothing else, that's the huge difference.
Yeah, that's when I didn't understand what the Catholic Church is like. You come in, say so many Hail Marys, like, okay, I can just kill a whole bunch of people and then go in and say my Hail Marys and I'm good to go. You know, it's like, what?
Well, I mean, but see, again, that's the problem we living with now. So they think because no man can give you forgiveness. So yeah, that's gonna bring up a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, we got to get into that one day. It's like, oh man, you got all these mobsters, at least depicted in movies, that were hyper religious and really tied to the Catholic Church, and it's like, you know, they'd kill a whole bunch of people, sell drugs, and do all this stuff
because they feel they can buy they can do their crime and then buy their forgiveness. That's why a lot of them, pretty much most of those old mobs, that's what their religion was, because it's easily, oh, okay, I could pay off the
that's why
the priest.
I could buy my way into heaven.
Exactly.
Wow.
So right now, this is like when they was journeying from where they were.
This night of saints and spirits would make its way to a new world, carrying with it the weight of both reverence and fear, ready to evolve once more in the land across the sea.
Once it got to the U.S., it evolved again.
In the 19th century, the shores of America welcomed waves of Irish and Scottish immigrants, and with them came the...
But this is some of their culture that they brought over here that wasn't good.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's when the period of the kids during the Depression and the war, the adults are off to war, the kids are just going crazy, and it's like, we got to step in and do something.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with having bringing positive culture, but so far everybody's bringing their negative culture to the pot and mixing it in.
That is interesting.
And that's, it's sad to say, but that's us included. Even though we was dragged over here, we brought a lot of those bad African habits over here. And we didn't bring none of the lessons we were supposed. Well, I take that back. I'm pretty sure a lot of our Hebrew traditions were brought originally, but over time they've been bred out or just forgotten.
We've got
over
witches
time.
And warlocks and,
of course,
things like that too.
Yep. And I just found out. So there's no. So that was a mistake I made. There's no warlocks. Men and women are just witches.
Oh, just witches.
Just witches.
Warlock sounds cooler.
Traditions of Samhain and All Hallows Eve.
But you see how society,
the old world spirits, myths, and customs found fertile ground in the new, and like seeds scattered in foreign soil, They began to grow in unexpected
like,
ways.
A scene in Harry Potter.
In the bustling streets of New York, Boston, and beyond, the customs of the Celts took root and began to change. What was once a night of solemn remembrance and spiritual reverence started to transform under the glow of a different sky.
It seems so innocent. It's just,
Halloween in America became less about the souls of the dead
But
and more
until you
about the living.
realize, so somebody did
A chance for a community to come together, to revel,
were real.
to play,
oh, really?
The
and
spells they were
sometimes
casting were
to
real.
cause a little
They were
mischief.
real spells.
Oh, wow.
And so witches
Gone were the medieval fears of vengeful
I don't
spirits
know
and
how
wandering
it
dead,
came out, but
replaced
some
by a
witches
more
were
playful
asked,
yet
or some
still
witches might have
shadowed
called
night.
in and said, talk to
The
the
immigrants
writer.
brought with
So the
them
writer-
practices of
the writer-
sewing and
So the
guising,
original.
The
which
writer
slowly
could
evolved.
have went and talked to some real witches.
Children masked
don't
in
know.
whatever scraps
Mm.
But we do know that
costumes they could.
those spells they were given were real spells.
Wow.
So a lot of private schools or charter schools were getting that book, that series, out of their
They
school
were like,
library.
nope, we ain't doing it.
And so they called it was a huge ruckus that got caused over that because they was like, well, we don't want that in our school.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to help, your kids out and not put them under that. But see, even in this time period, they still wearing the type of masks. They're not present day masks yet, but you see how over periods of time, the masks are changing.
Yeah.
They're changing.
And technology gets better so they can.
Yeah. Yep. So they said even bobbing for apples is bad.
Which is not, well, it ain't sanitary. The things we used to do back in the day, right? I bobbed for apples when I was a kid.
Yeah,
like,
but
everybody put your nasty mouth in the water and try to get you an apple.
Yeah, but all of that stuff had everything.
But we didn't get sick from that.
Yeah, but everything has meaning though.
Oh man.
So that's why this video is really important. As you go through it, as people go through it, they'll start seeing a lot of the customs we had wasn't good.
So let me ask you this. You have we could take the N-word, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that this word is bad. No good can come of it. However, there are some in the community that have tried to co-opt the word and make it something positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am of the thought that it's still negative and it doesn't do us any good. And if there's certain folks that use that word and trigger you and you feel some kind of way, then you can't actually change the word. And I think it's the same thing with this. So you've taken this pagan thing, you're trying to make it good, but it's still based on something that's evil, but you're trying to justify that you don't mean it that way, but it still has the negative effects, whether it's direct or indirect.
All right, so let's take the word.
Mm-hmm.
In its proper context, in its original context, right? It wasn't bad because they were just calling us Niger, which means black in Africa, right?
I know there's a country named Niger.
Yeah, but it was also a river.
Mm.
So that's basically where the area we were. So in another podcast, we'll talk about Negro land. And that again, we can go into that a lot more deeper, but that's basically the area where we were. So like all of that was Negro land where the 12 tribes were.
So Negro or Niger.
So Negro is the closest to what we are, because that is it has a different meaning, but it's the closest meaning, I guess, would be like Hebrew, which would also would take us back to Hebrew.
Mm.
So people take the N-word way out of context, but see, a lot of us don't know. So we take what we've been given and then automatically turn it negative. And we automatically, just because that's what we were called during slavery, it's just how we use it now.
Yeah, but they weren't calling us Nigers. They added the extra G.
Of course.
And then it became something else.
But again, not everybody in the South was educated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's you gotta put that into it too. So when we did learn English, some people were speaking proper English, some people wasn't. Well, a lot of people in the South wasn't. If you wasn't like really educated at a pristine college, you was talking slang. So that's what the N-word became, a slang of Niger.
So I'm hearing what you're saying, right? And so you've got the Niger River and then the country of Niger, but I don't know if that is of origin. Vocabulary,
because we've out of ignorance. Period. So,
but if we were Ebros, and then so was it colonizers that named it Niger and the Niger River, and that's where it came from? Because then it would still come from a negative space.
No, it was Niger before, but colonizers didn't help by labeling the coastline. So you had the
Negro land, right?
Yeah, but you had the Gold Coast is where they was taking all the gold from.
Ivory Coast.
Yeah, where they were taking all the ivory from. And you had the Slave Coast, where they were taking all the slaves from. But it was a specific people. They didn't take slaves from all over. They was taking it from different parts, but they still knew who they were taking. So there's when they actually came over here, there's actually stones that says here were the first Negroes. So they knew who they were taking. They didn't take they might have took one or twosies of like real Africans that were actually African like through DNA, but most of them were Hebrew they were taking.
Okay.
So if people need to get their own DNA checked, and then you can bounce it off. If you do the study, you can bounce it off and then figure out who you are.
And we might have to do a series on that.
Yeah, that's going to be a whole different
series. All right, so let's digress and get back to that.
Muster took to the streets, singing songs or telling rhymes, seeking not prayers but treats. It was a practice that would one day evolve into the iconic call of trick or treat. But here in these early American years, it was a dance between the old customs and the new land's possibilities. The hearths of America warmed to new traditions as well. Fortune-telling games were played by the fire's light, echoing the rituals of the old country. Apples and mirrors became tools of divination once again. Would a peel reveal the initial of a future love? Would a glimpse into a dimly lit looking glass show the face of a future bride?
I don't even know how far Ouija boards go back, but you should know that's bad.
Yeah. And then
this is similar to that.
And you got spells.
Yeah.
There's a lot of witches and practitioners in the Black community.
Yeah, yeah.
And not just from New Orleans.
Well, because they're trying to find something more. Or they're trying to call what's that they practice in Louisiana? Voodoo. They think that's our original religion, and it's not. But all through history, we have had a problem with accepting other people's religion. And that's been even all through the Bible, we've had that same issue. We can't just be the example that we were chosen to be and show everybody else how to praise God. We take what everybody else got.
Gotcha. So I wonder if there is a region in Africa that's still intact.
Yeah, there's two tribes that's still intact. Yeah.
Okay.
The Limba and the Igbo they still practice
Christianity.
Judaism.
Yeah. Okay.
Because that before Jesus came, we practiced Judaism. And that was with the old laws, like the Old Testament, Judaism, most of it. But when Jesus came, we were supposed to leave Judaism alone because that's the perfect sacrifice.
Gotcha.
So there was no need to sacrifice any more animals after that. So, all right. Yeah, you can keep playing the video.
Except for fried chicken, right?
You can eat fried chicken. Just don't eat
half spoken in jest and half in earnest.
Do anything
kept alive the threads of the past, even as the future of Halloween took shape.
That's a huge problem.
Ghost stories also found a home in the American Halloween. The dark tales that once whispered through the villages and towns of Europe now haunted the parlors and porches of New England.
Is another thing that
but new spirits were added.
Blood is a holy thing, so it can go through the realms or the dimensions So it can go through the physical world to the spiritual world. So that's why you'll see witches, or I don't know if you ever do see witches, like they're cutting blood or draining blood, drawing circles with and stuff, because it makes their spell stronger. So that's why, like, God, that's why you ain't supposed to like cut and drink blood, none of that stuff, because it's bad. So wherever there's blood, it's a curse, basically.
The skin once more,
this point,
emerging as a night of organized joy rather than unrestrained mischief.
Right.
Yet, beneath the costumes and the candy, the old spirit still lingered, reminding us that Halloween's heart beats with both sweetness and shadows. The transformation was nearly complete, setting the stage for Halloween to grow into the beloved, family-friendly celebration that would captivate generations to come.
In this aspect, it's just like our history, how over time.
Well, and I'd almost say that it's lost with the mainstream, but there's a lot of folks that still know the history. The practitioners, they know what they're doing, right? That's
the
why
practitioners of Halloween,
right? And
like,
it's a lot of witches underground.
So a lot of witches, they know, and it's not that underground anymore.
No, yeah, you're right.
So
you're right, it's way out and open now.
They know, and they just choose to do it anyway. So we have to figure out, well, as people get the information, then they have choices they can make now. So you can either continue to do that and wonder why life is so hard, or you can away from that, repent, and try to move on.
A celebration that lit up the stores as much as it did the streets. Halloween had become a night of sweet indulgence, driven by the insatiable demand for candy, where the tricks were softened, and the treats became the true treasure.
Basically.
Thus, the transformation of Halloween was nearly complete.
You really want to look at it.
No longer just a night for the bold and the mischievous. It was now a time for families, for fun, and for a taste of something sweet.
That was one of the main things God didn't like.
The ghosts of the past still lingered,
jealous God.
but they were now joined by a new spirit, one that was as much about delight as it was about dread, as much about candy as it was about creatures of the night. Halloween marched on, ever evolving, ever enchanting, carrying with it both the weight of tradition and the promise of a good scare, and perhaps just another handful of sweets. And while the streets filled with trick-or-treaters and the candy bowls emptied, another force began to shape Halloween into what it is today.
But it was both around some kind of learning around Halloween.
But it was a way to basically change the way kids looked at it. So instead of having them running around throwing rocks, tearing up the town, they got them doing this.
The lesser two evils. Which I hate.
Is it really?
You know, I hate that phrase. You know, lesser two evils.
Yeah, because I don't know about that now. I mean, evil is evil at this point. So.
Right. Well, and that's a political thing, right?
Yeah.
You hear that all the time. Oh, vote for this one. The lesser two evils. Like, nah, evil is evil. Yeah. They just packaged it up, made it look like it's benign, and it's cool. It's not harmful. Yeah. So go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. You know, I think you're toward the end of the video there.
Yeah.
I like to give people tools, right? So let's say I'm a young mother, maybe I'm a single mother, and I've got a 5 or 6 year old, and you know, Halloween is what everyone does at the daycare or in the 2nd grade or the 5th grade. What could she do to navigate that, have those conversations with her kids, to where they're just, you're not kind of pushing your child away? I mean, you got to be a parent sometimes. You just got to say no.
Have them do other things. So bring up other things instead.
Okay.
And you got to start early.
Well, you have examples.
So that's my
what you
thing.
Guys do?
I didn't do, because I was deployed and I didn't know better. I should have known better.
Well, what did your wife do?
I was deployed. So she did the best she could do. She took care of the kids.
Okay. So what would you do now if you guys had it to do over?
I would probably, I would have been holding Bible study early.
Ooh.
And that's what I would have probably got
on Halloween?
All year.
Okay.
Because I would have used the Bible to teach them to read.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I met a reserve chief warrant officer who said that he said that's what he would have done if he would have got a chance to do it over. And it was a good idea, but if you don't have nobody mentoring you like that strongly at an early age, then you don't know until you come across it after you done studied for a while and you didn't research, and you're like, oh, I let all this time wasted.
Yeah. And you go along to get along, right? They're telling you it's no big deal. It's just kids. Let them have the candy.
You just don't know. So as a kid, you be like, oh, I'm in for the candy.
Right.
So,
kids don't know. Right.
Yeah. So
that's why parenting is so important.
I would definitely do Bible study. And you can like board games. So we did do a lot of board games when growing up. We did my family was big on Monopoly. We did play cards and dominoes. So I learned my math fairly early.
Gotcha. So what I'm hearing is give your children another option.
Exactly.
So it's not a punishment.
Exactly.
Oh, well, you don't get to go out with the other kids and pass out candy.
Yep.
So you just go and do your homework. No,
now
we're going to do some family things. We're going to do something fun. So they got an alternative.
You can bake desserts with them. And let them so they can still have something sweet. I mean, and it's homemade, so that's even better. So, yeah, like baking cookies, cakes, whatever you know how to cook, then impart that wisdom on them early. You can't go wrong with you can't go wrong with that. And then
and that just seems transferable regardless whether it's Halloween or Christmas or Easter.
Yep. Any holiday, but then also watch out for the type of friends or watch out for the type of kids that your kids play with. So I had a lot of different people that I hung out with and I would bring over, but only one that my parents really approved of and kind of adopted him into the family more or less. So like
that was Rod.
Yeah. So they still talk to that friend.
Yeah.
And every time if he calls, like they want to like, oh, Anthony called. They were like, oh yeah, Tom, we said hello. But they got to know his mom. Yep. So
that's how it was.
Other kids, so you gotta be mindful of who your kids are involved with. Because you just don't know other families what they're dealing with.
And it's so much worse, right? Or vaping, drugs, sex.
Or what's attached to that family spiritually. So yeah, just
and the friend might be okay, but the siblings that the friend has that's a little bit older,
so
might be putting them in.
Be proactive.
Yeah, man,
is what I would recommend. Be proactive, and be honest about the holidays. And if you don't know, then do research yourself and find out what the meaning of every holiday is. Because again, this country isn't founded on what we think it's founded on. So,
and it's your household, right? So you make your own traditions.
There you go. So if you can do that, then everything else, well,
I like that. It's teaching your kids to critically think.
And God will take care of the rest.
Don't go along to get along. Be of your own mind. All right. Well, man, we unpacked a lot there.
Yeah.
So that's a really good one. I don't know if you have any Bible verses for us today that kind of connect us to that. But
probably just the first commandment.
Okay.
First commandment.
I like that one. And sometimes we make it more complicated than it has to be. Right?
So
it doesn't have to be difficult.
Sometimes it's easy. It's basic sometimes, and I think God made it that way. So we won't have to be struggling so much just to get the basic stuff he wanted us to know.
Gotcha.
To keep us out of trouble.
Well, I can tell you probably will be hearing this type of conversation again come Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Easter. So stay tuned.
Easter gonna be a big one.
But those things are important, right? And it's not only the fact that it's not biblical and it can lead in a bad direction. But when you look at the commercialization and the capitalism piece of it, where it's teaching and training consumerism into your kids to where they grow up and want to spend and spend and spend and spend, and that's not helpful to generate wealth or self-sufficiency or financial literacy or efficiency either. So it's all these things that go into it, and we don't even look at it. So, oh man, well, I appreciate you as always. This is another episode of Guided True with yours, Guyland Charles, the educator, myself, Marwan, the professor. We'll see you next time. Take care.